How you doing, guys? It's Ian Streets here from Boxing Tutorials, and today we're going to be going through an instructional on how to hold the pads all the way from beginner through to advanced, some of the safety things with holding the pads, how to hold for the basic punches, how to start putting together simple combinations, moving all the way through to more advanced combinations. First of all, why do we hold pads? Now, if you can think of any attribute you could possibly want from your boxer, whether it be speed, power, technique, timing, offense, defense, whatever you want, the pads are a good way to develop each and every one of those when they're done correctly. But what you need to bear in mind is the way you hold the pads will vary depending on what you want to achieve. So knowing what you're trying to do is the first step in being a good pad holder. It's your role when you hold the pads to add value to your client or to your fighter. So for example, if you've got a fighter and you can't hold pads and the only way they're able to develop their timing, defense, offense, things like that is through sparring, they're going to end up have to do a lot of rounds, more rounds than you perhaps like. There's more chance they're going to get injured. They're going to take more damage than they need to. So the pads are a good way that you can take whatever drills you want them to put into practice in a live format and drill it with a little bit more safety. Likewise, if you've got your client and they've never boxed before, but they want to get the benefits of a boxing workout, that's fantastic. However, if you're not sure what you're doing and you're holding the pads incorrectly, you might slow down their progress, you might reinforce bad technique, or you might actually hurt them or hurt yourselves by not holding the pads correctly. So what we want to try and do today is give you some drills, give you the knowledge that you need to be able to make sure that that doesn't happen. So the first thing with holding the pads is the safety aspect of it. There's a way to hold the pads, obviously, and there's a way not to hold the pads. So let's go over some of the common mistakes that you'll see with people new to pad holding, and the flip side to that, how you want to hold your pads. In all situations, what you want to try and do is imagine you're the boxer yourself. So when you're moving around, you want to be in your stance rather than just neutral, putting your hands up. The positioning of the hands are everything. If it's too wide, which is what you'll see a lot of newcomers to holding pads do, you're promoting a bad technique in the person punching. They're gonna have to go across their body and there's a big gaping hole right in the middle that you might get hit straight down. What you wanna do is make sure that you're holding them more along the center line. We're gonna come to throwing the individual shots in a moment, but for now, just know the pads do not wanna be too far out. The flip side to that is you obviously don't want to hold them too narrow in front of your face for obvious reasons. The person's going to hit the pad, best case situation, they're going to hit the pad into your face. Worst case, they're going to go straight through the middle and hit your face itself. So you don't want to be too wide, you don't want to be too narrow. The next thing is on catching the shots. So another thing you'll see a lot of people do is they'll smash the pads down onto the person's punch. Now, obviously there's a chance that you're going to injure their hands, you might injure your own hands if you do it hard enough, but you're also shortening their punch. You're not allowing them to get the full range of motion that they want in their shot. So you don't want to be smashing the shot, but at the same time, you definitely don't want to be pulling your hand away when they're throwing the punch, because what happens then is they're more likely to hyperextend their elbow, and that's a really bad injury to get. It's very frustrating. If you're trying to build a client base and you're pulling your hand away, they're going to get frustrated, they're going to get injured, and then they probably won't want to come back. If you've got a fighter, you can really seriously injure them if they're throwing with speed and power. So you really don't want to be pulling your hands away either. The second you lose trust with the person that is throwing the punches, it's going to change the way they punch, and it's all downhill from there. So what you want to do is meet the shot. We're going to see that in practice in a moment. For now, just know the extremes that we want to make sure that we're avoiding. We don't want to slam, we don't want to pull away, we want to be catching the shots. One thing to bear in mind is when you're moving around with your partner, there's a couple of ways that you can feed the pads. So you may tell them which punches to do. You might say jab, cross, hook, so on and so forth. Or you may just flash up the target for them to hit if you want to be working their reactions. That simulates seeing an opening and taking the opening. With that being said, if you're walking around the whole time with the target area exposed, your partner may get confused and start throwing punches that they think that you want to be doing. Most pads come with a circular area on it. Keep them either facing each other or facing yourself so that you can flash the target when you want it and there's no confusion so that you're not getting accidentally hit. Now, with regards to, or an extension of when we're talking about the target area, we'll see it in practice in a moment, but just bear in mind that wherever you're holding the pad, you want that to resemble what you want them to be hitting. So for example, if it's a straight punch, they're aiming for the front of the face. You want the pad to be resembling the front of a face. So if you're super tall, you're 7 feet tall and you're working with a shorter client, there's no chance that they'll be hitting at someone that high if they're wanting to work their boxing. So just be a little bit mindful of that. Don't hold the pad up here so they're having to jump up. Make it a little bit more relatable to where they're most probably going to be hitting. Likewise with the hooks, as we said, you want to be hitting the center line. Think about how the shot should look and hold the pad accordingly. So we don't want to be holding the pads out super wide. We want them getting used to punching down their midline, so we're going to be holding the hooks in that area. When it comes to throwing the uppercuts, they're going to be aiming for the bottom of the chin. We want the pads to be resembling the bottom of where their appropriate chin height would be, or where they're most likely to be throwing punches. So when we're throwing the straights, we want it to resemble the front of the face. When we're throwing hooks, they're aiming for the side of the chin. We want to be putting the pads in a position where it's on the side of the chin. When we throw the uppercuts, they're going to the bottom of the chin, so we want to be holding the pads in those positions. When it comes to the body, we'll give each punch a number in a moment, but just know there's different ways that we're going to hold those pads, but it should resemble what you want them to be hitting. The final thing I'd say is not to let your ego or ambition outweigh your current skill. So you may want to put together big, flashy, long combinations, but if you're not comfortable with the basics yet, it's best to steer clear of that. Because again, you're going to promote bad technique, you might get confused, your pad might not be in the right place, and that's when you're likely to get hit. And from a safety perspective, that's the last thing you want to be doing. You want to be in control of the pads so that you can guide them in where they should be punching. So there's 3 timings of the punch. It can be the person that you're holding the pads for initiating. That's when they're on offense. That means they're throwing the first shot. That would be, as we said, you giving them the call or you flashing the target for them to hit. So the second timing could be they punch you while you're punching them. In this situation, you might see where you're wearing a body protector, or where we'll see in a moment, where you're holding the pad in position for them to be attacking at the very same time that you hit. This is a great way of hitting people because you can catch their breathing off time, and also too, it's a very unexpected shot. When someone's throwing their own punch and you hit them straight back, they can almost walk onto the punch and it'll do double the amount of damage. The final thing is after a shot. So if I initiate a shot for my opponent to defend against, it misses them and then they counter back. This is counter punching. And what we're going to explore now is all the different ways that we can use this, the variations of it, and how the number of punches they throw back with can be varied depending on what we want them to work. The most important thing with the counter punching before we start getting all fun, we don't need them throwing a 75 punch combo back. What we need them to do is make the shot that was aimed at them miss and ideally hit them back. Anything after that is icing on the cake. However, we're going to examine how making them punch 1 shot as a counter punch, 2 shot as a counter punch, 3 shot as a counter punch, how they have a different function and what we need to bear in mind when we're putting that into combinations. All right, guys, we've got boxing and Thai boxing extraordinaire, Mr. Wayne Ward, joining us. What we're going to be going through now is how the punches look on the pads. The more advanced we get, and for example, if we're doing a long reactive sequence, it can be a lot to say if we're using the names of the punches. So I'm going to take you through a little number system that I personally use. You don't have to, but I do find it easier when there's longer sequences to come. It makes it a little bit quicker to get across to your partner what you want them to do if we use a number system. So the number 1 we refer to as the jab. As we talked about, you want to be making it resemble the front of the face, but not directly in front of your face for obvious reasons. Wayne throws out a slow motion jab. What you want to be doing is catching the shot rather than smashing onto it, or if he throws that slow motion punch, I definitely don't want to be pulling the pads away as we've already previously mentioned. So if he throws his number 1 at normal speed, I'm just catching the shot. Throws it again. That's how you want to be catching the jab. The number 2 we refer to as the rear hand straight. So if you're right-handed, it'll be your right hand. If you're left-handed, it'll be your left. So if he throws that in slow motion, I hold it away from my face, but at the appropriate height that I would want him punching at. So again, if he throws that in slow motion, I catch the shot and I bring it back. You'll notice my other hand is not out like this where he's confused whether he should be throwing a 1 or a 2. When I want him to throw the 2, I'll show that target. When I want him to throw the 1, I'll give that target. So the 3 will be the left hook because Wayne's right-handed. Again, if he throws that in slow motion, what I want to be doing is putting it on the center line for him to hit. Now, some people like having their elbow up, some people like having their elbow down. It's very much personal preference. What you just want to make sure is that you're not hurting yourself when you do it. So if you find one way hurts, it's worth just adjusting your elbow angle to see what feels best for you. If he throws that slow motion hook, what I want to do again is making sure I'm catching the shot rather than trying to hit it onto him or take it away. The number 4 will be his hook with his backhand. And again, it's going to be on that center line without the other pad being shown, so there's no confusion. The 5 is going to be the uppercut with the front hand. Again, we want it around chin height, so when it's slow motion, it's going to be going there. The other pad isn't showing. The number 6 is going to be the uppercut with the other hand. The number 7 we refer to the body rip. That is the liver shot because he's right-handed. And what we want to do is, there's a couple of ways we can hold this. Either we can hold both pads here where it's reinforced at about the height that we want him hitting, or we can put it underneath our armpit for him to hit. This is especially handy if we want him counter-punching. So for example, I might be throwing a shot at him, which we'll do in a minute. That pad's right there. Just make sure that you're comfortable taking the power of whoever you're working with. Otherwise, double up the pad or get yourself one of those body protectors so that they can hit that area. Obviously, that leaves us with number 8, which is going to be the body shot on the other side, where we can either hold here or we can hold here. The main thing is make sure that it's not on your body, hurting yourself. What we're doing today is obviously focusing on the pad holding element. If you're unsure of the punching side, on our website, there's plenty of videos on how each punch should look, but make sure you're checking Wayne's technique if you're unsure about how it should look. What we're going to move on to now is how we can start structuring combinations. So we've got our client or our fighter. We're happy with the way they're throwing their punches at numbers 1 through 8. The next thing we need to consider is what do we want them doing from there? So I feel a good thing to do is get them doubling up on the shots. And what I mean by that is we've got them throwing their 1. Now we're going to get them to throw a 1 and another 1, for example. The reason we do this is sometimes you can get away with throwing one shot that's the technique is a little bit questionable, but when you have to double it up, anything that you're doing incorrectly is really highlighted. So for example, if you've dropped your hand down into the wrong position, the next punch is not going to feel right. If I take Wayne, I've asked him to throw out his 1. I get him to double up on that 1, and I can see that both of those techniques are solid. If we look at the 2, I get him to throw the 2. His hand comes straight back. When he doubles up on that 2, I can check, make sure that hand's coming back. Brilliant. So it's a good way to spot what aren't they doing, or is the punch correct, but the retraction wrong? Because there's 2 parts to a punch. The punch has to go out, but it also has to come straight back. A lot of time people focus so much attention on the shot going out, but if we only do that, that's really a push. If the punch isn't coming back, it'll let the snap, and that's not how we want to be throwing our punches. So when you're getting them to double up on their shots, it's a good way to see that the hand is coming back to where it should be. One thing that's very important to bear in mind is the best time to hit someone is when their shot is coming back to their face, because no one is protected 100% of the time. There's always going to be a slight window, and that's what we're trying to work on when we're holding the pads. If I throw one hand out, even if I'm throwing that shot again, there's a time where my hand isn't by my face when that punch is coming back. If I'm going to throw the other hand, there's a window there, and that's what I want him to be working. If he's doubling up and he's dropping his hand down, he's making that window bigger than it needs to be, and that's when we're going to start adding in shots for him to have to defend, and you realize, I need to be putting up my hands. So we take the shot, we get them to double up on the same hand. The next thing I would do would get them going from one hand to the other. So I would take the 1, and then I'd get a 2 thrown at the end of that. And we can see how the straight shots look when they're thrown with alternating hands. Again, what we're looking for is, do they maintain balance? Are they dropping their hands down in between? What are they doing well? And what are they perhaps not doing so well? Because it's a really great learning tool if you can say, the way you snap your jab, that's what you want to be doing on your right hand. Don't snap out your jab and then lean into that straight. You want to be doing both the same way, or look for any patterns that they have and use it as a way of helping them. The next thing I would do is take different angles and get them to play with it. So for example, I might get a straight line shot like the number 1, and then put in a horizontal shot like the 3 and see how does their technique look when they're doing that. I'd get them doing it on the same hand, and then I might switch hands. So I'd get them to throw a 1 and then a 4. and see how the shots look when they're having to go from side to side. And what you're looking for is just body mechanics. How do they throw the shots on its own when they have to stay on that same side? How do they look when they have to switch sides? How does that change? And from there, we can start going on to adding in shots for them to defend. So far, everything we've done has been offense for the person punching. I've been giving the target, but that just resembles an opening that they want to hit, but I haven't thrown anything back yet. So what we're going to go on to now is the different ways that we can defend and how you can start using that to structure your combinations with your partner. So essentially there's three main ways that we can defend. The first way is evasive. That means the shot is going to completely miss us. We're going to break each one down individually, but for now, just know you can make the shot entirely miss. Something like a slip or a bob is an example of that. The next thing that we can do is deflect the shot. That's when we alter the path of the punch. If a straight line shot is coming at me, I parry it out the way. That's an example of a deflective shot. The final thing we can do is interceptive, which we've mentioned briefly already, and that is when the person's punching at me, I make them miss and hit them at the same time. That's an interceptive shot. Within each of those three subsets, there's a whole bunch of different variations that you need to bear in mind why you would do which one. So if you're not from a combat background, this is a way to help you understand why you choose, because you don't want to just tell your partner to slip. Why do you want them to slip? What do you want them working on? And what are they trying to avoid? So let's take each one at a time and see what we should consider. So the first defense that we're going to look at is the slip. The slip is an evasive shot because it makes the shot completely miss us. Now, when would we use a slip? We'd use a slip against a straight line offense. So if I'm with Wayne here and I'm throwing my jab at him, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to hit his nose, the center of his chin. His aim with the slip is to make that shot completely miss. And the way he's going to do that is take himself off the center line. So when I'm throwing my jab, he's going to make that shot completely miss. When it comes to throwing the shots at your partner, there's two main rules. Number one, don't be too nice. So if I want him to slip, I don't want to be throwing the shots where he doesn't even have to move. But at the same time, don't be a dick. If I'm telling him to slip and I'm saying, Wayne, slip for me, and I throw the shot purposely out there, that's not helping anyone, okay? So what you want to do, your job is to throw the shot where their opponent would be throwing the punch. So I'm aiming for his head, he's moving his head out of the way. Perfect. Now we said the best time to hit someone is as they're bringing their hand back. So what I would do then is give him the target to throw. If he's slipping, this is called the outside, slipping to the outside or just the regular slip. The reason it's called that, a ridiculous story to help remember this, is if you think of the punching hand like a front door and their other hand as a guard dog. If Wayne slips to the outside, he's away from the guard dog, he's nice and safe, he can counter back with his shot. Now, if he slips inside the door, he has moved close to the guard dog, there's a chance that that guard dog will bite. It's not that he can't do it, it's just something to bear in mind. So when you start out with someone, if they're relatively new, it's always a good port of call to get them drilling the basic slip first, because the other thing it does is if Wayne slips, he throws his right hand. If I threw that slip again, he's practiced pulling his hand back to his face and getting his head off the center line. So by throwing your punch with your right hand, slipping off to the right, it's a good way of practicing getting your hand back and getting your head off the center line. If he were to throw a 3, for example, the hand that I have available is opposite. He's going to bring his hand back to where it came from and he's going to throw the shot. So what you notice, this defense is embedded in getting your hand back to your face. If he throws his number 2 and he gets his hand back to your face and just exaggerates his head moving just slightly, he's got the slip available to him without really having to think too much about it. If he throws his 3, when he gets his hand back to his face, he's going to be out of the way if I throw my 2 and he can come back like that. So don't get confused, oh, which hand should I put which? If you want him slipping towards his right-hand side, he's going to be coming back with that right hand. If you want him slipping to his left-hand side, he's going to be coming back with that left hand, okay? So that is the basic slip. Now, he obviously can go the other way. Why would he do that? He may do it, for example, if when I'm throwing my 1, I'm dropping my hand. If he's got this lovely left hook available to him, he's going to drill that shot. So I might say, slip in. He's going to slip on the inside and he's going to throw that shot, okay? Or he might slip in and he might throw an uppercut into my body, because all of these shots are available to our head or our body, okay? Another reason he might do it. Let's say he throws his number 2. He wants to retract his hand, which would make him slip this way. We've just discussed that. However, let's say he slips off my face or he misses slightly. What's going to happen then is maybe I'm going to throw this shot. He's going to have to go with it. Now, in an ideal world, he'd manage to rebalance himself and slip back out this way. However, that's not always the case. So I might say 2, slip in. He's going to have to slip in and he's going to counter back with that other hand. As long as you know when you would do certain things, you're able to drill it. The danger is if you're not sure why you're doing something, you're just saying slip, slip, then it doesn't make sense. The person that you're working with will get confused. What have we covered so far? We know that we can do our normal slip. If I throw my left, he's going to move to his right, he's going to come back with the other hand. If I do that with the other hand, he's going to get out the way, he's going to counter back. If I want him to slip in, whichever hand I throw, he's going to be hitting the same hand, okay? So for the normal slip, you throw with one hand, catch with the other. For the inside slip, you throw and you catch with the same hand. The final variation of the slip that we can do is a interceptive shot. And what that means is while I'm throwing my punch, Wayne is also going to throw the punch at me. So how this would work is I'm going to throw my jab for him to defend. He's going to slip and throw his own jab at the same time, okay? You can do this to the body, you can do this to the head. If you're doing it to the head, I recommend you put the pad on your shoulder near your armpit. Definitely not in front of your face. And if you're working with someone new, I'd get them to practice going to the body first so that you're comfortable that they can hit a target before you get them punching towards your face when the target is so close to you, okay? But it is good to know that there's also the interceptive option available. I throw my jab, he's gonna throw his own one. Likewise, if I wanna throw my right hand at him, I throw the shot and he's gonna go straight down the middle, or he can aim a bit higher and go for the head. So those are the basic slip, the inside slip, and the interceptive slip or slip jab, slip cross, whatever you wanna call it. So we've seen how the slip can be used as an evasive movement from a straight punch. Now what we're going to look at is the bob and weave. The bob and weave is an evasive movement that gets us out of the way of a hooked shot, okay? So what it looks like in practice is, if I were to throw my left hook, what Wayne wants to do is make that shot completely miss. Again, I'm aiming for his jawline. He's made that shot miss. I've thrown my punch with one hand. I'm going to catch his counter with the other hand, okay? Because it makes sense. If I've missed with this hand, now he's got this shot available to him, he's going to take it. Likewise, if I were to throw my other hand, he's going to be bobbing in the other direction and he's going to be countering back with that hand. With the bob and weave, the main thing, the biggest mistake you'll see with people is they try and get into position too quickly. So the ridiculous story I have for this is when people ever do gymnastics or something like that, often if they want to learn to flip, the biggest mistake they do is they look for the floor too quickly. And as a result, they don't jump high enough and they splat the flip. Same thing with the bob. People want to be moving out of the way of the shot and then going underneath it. They know they want to end up away from the punch, but sometimes they rush it if they're new and they end up walking straight into the punch. So just make sure that your person is doing a circular movement when they're doing the bob, because that's how the shot is completely going to miss. So Wayne makes that shot completely miss me, he counters back with that hand, he goes the other way, he counters back with that hand. We mentioned that circular movement. The reason that becomes important is if I'm getting Wayne to throw shots and then I'm going to be throwing my counters at him to surprise him, often what I'll do is when he throws his number 2, his hips are twisted, I'm going to throw that shot because that's where he might be open. If he'd thrown the shot and his chin isn't covered, I might be throwing that shot to catch him off guard. So when he throws that 2, as long as he knows that circular movement, he's already out the way and he can counter back with that shot. Likewise, if he throws his 3, he's going to move out the way and he's going to counter back with that shot. Now, if you've got someone who's going to be dealing with actual combat situation, one thing we need to bear in mind, that bob works. If Wayne were to hit me, his only real threat is me swinging this arm, and that's why he's going to bob that way. However, if he throws that shot and I block it, I'm going to be countering back with this hand, and he's going to have to go the other way. So we refer to that as the bob back. So if we look how we fed the basic bob, what happens is Wayne throws his shot, I throw the other hand, and he throws that same punch. The way the bob back would work, is I have to tell him what I want him to do, because in the actual situation, he'll feel, oh, my hand rebounded off him, and he'll move the other way. When you're feeding the pads, you don't want to be smashing them around, so you have to tell them, okay? So if I say 2, bob back, what Wayne would do, he would throw his shot, he would bring his hand back to his face first and bob out the other way, and he'd end up throwing the other hand. So with a basic bob, it becomes 2, bob, 2. With a bob back, it's 2, rip his hand back, and then throw that 3. If we move on to the other hand, he throws his 3, bob, 3. Or if I want him to do the bob back, it's going to be 3. He's going to rip his hand back to his face, get out of the way, and we're going to throw that 2. Okay, so that's the basic bob and the bob back. Just like with the slip, we can also make it interceptive. What that means is he's going to be hitting me as I'm hitting him. So if I'm throwing my 3 towards Wayne, what he's going to do is, as he's bobbing, he's going to be throwing a 3 towards my stomach. That's a great shot because it interrupts their breathing. It's an unexpected shot. It'll catch him off guard. So he might go straight underneath, then he might follow it up. We're going to work with follow-up shots in one moment. We can also do it on the other way. As I'm throwing my 4, he's throwing his 4, and the other hand is here to catch. Make sure it's on the area that you'd want them to be hitting, and just make sure that you, as I said before, that you're comfortable taking the power of your opponent. So if we look at those 3 variations of our bob and weave one more time, we'll start with the 2. We can do the 2, the basic bob, he'll counter back with that exact same punch. If he does the bob back, he'll start with his 2, he'll rip his hand back, he'll go back, and he'll counter with the other hand, we'll make it a 3. Or he'll start with his 2, he'll bob and intercept me, and he'll throw that shot straight back. If we look at it on the other hand, he'll start with his 3, he'll bob, and he's going to use that exact same punch, just like he did on the other hand. If he does the bob back, he'll throw his 3, rip his hand back, go under, he's going to counter back with the other hand, it feels good to throw that 2. If he throws the 3, he's going to go underneath it, intercept me, and he's going to counter back with the shot. So those are the 3 variations of our bob and weave. So far, everything we've done has been evasive maneuvers, whether it be the slip that got us out of the way of straight shots, or the bob and weave that got us out of the way of the hooks. All of these shots so far have completely missed us. They've gone underneath, or we've moved our head out the way. Obviously in boxing, that's not always the case. So we're going to move on to the cover and the catch. The cover and the catch are a way of physically stopping the shot from hitting us. So the difference between them is this. If I start with my number 3, my left hook on Wayne, his center line goes straight down the middle. Now, if I'm a heavy hitter, or I've caught him off guard, or he's got to the shot late, what's going to happen is I'm going to move him past his center line. What he's going to then do is, this hand isn't really available to him, so he's going to be countering back with the opposite hand. So anytime his hips go past the center line, he's going to be countering back with his opposite hand. That is a cover. So if he covers up, he's going to counter back with this hand. Likewise, if I throw my other hand, he's going to defend with one hand and counter back with the other. From the pad holding perspective, what that means to you is you're going to throw the punch with one hand, you're going to catch his punch with the same hand. Likewise, on the other hand, I'm going to throw the shot and he's going to counter back. If he gets to the shot early, he's got good timing, or if I'm swinging my shots a little bit wildly and I don't force him to cross his center line, what he can do is brace up and he can defend and attack with the same hand. Because on the cover, he was defending with one hand, countering with the other. Now he's going to do everything with the same hand. He's going to defend and attack with the same hand. So if I throw my 3 at him, that left hook, he's going to cover up and he's going to throw that same hand straight back. So he defends and attacks with the same hand. So if I say catch, he's going to go straight there. If we use the other hand, let's say I swing at him with a 4, he's going to cover up. I haven't forced him to cross his center line. This shot is open to him, so he's going to take it. So that's what the catch looks like. It is important that you realize their structure. If you tell them to catch, but you've pushed their hips over this way, it's impossible for them to defend and attack with the same hand. That punch is going to end up flying out there. So you want to simulate what you would want their opponent to have done to them. So if they're going to be up against someone with heavy hands, you think there's a high opportunity they're going to have to roll with the shots, you're going to say cover. He's going to come back with the other hand, cover. He's going to come back with the other hand. Likewise, if they've got good timing, you think they're going to be able to catch the shot, counter straight back, I'll say catch to him, and then he's going to come straight back with that hand. He's going to catch, and he's come back straight with that. This also works to the body. If anyone's any good, they're not going to be throwing body shots with their heads up high. They're going to be doing what we call switching levels. They're going to drop down to the level they want to be hitting. What that means is their head is a little bit lower, so an uppercut is a great shot to get them to throw as their first punch, to catch them off guard and snap that chin up. So if I want him to cover, he's going to defend and he's going to come straight back with that uppercut. If I want him to cover on the other side, he's going to defend and he's going to counter straight back. If I want him to catch, what he's going to be doing is he's going to be defending with the same hand that he's going to be attacking with. So he's almost side bending and he's going to come straight up. He's going to side bend and he's going to come straight up. So to recap that, the cover, you're defending with one hand and you're attacking with the other one. The catch, you're defending and attacking with the same hand. What it looks like in practice is if he covers my left hook, he counters back with the left hook. If he catches my left hook, he's going to cover, counter with the same hand. If I use my right hook and he wants to cover it, what he's going to do is he's going to go past that center line and he's going to counter back with his opposite hand. If he catches it, he's going to defend and attack with the same hand. To the body, if he covers, he's going to move past his center line and he's going to counter back with the opposite hand. If he catches it, he's going to defend and attack with the same hand. If I move to use my right hand and I want him to cover, he's going to switch past that center line and he's going to come straight up. If I want him to catch, he's going to defend and attack with the same hand. So we've done our evasive maneuvers, we've slipped the straight shots, we've bobbed against the hooks, we've started on our deflective work, we've covered and we've worked on our catch. What we're going to do now is we're going to be deflecting straight shots that come at us. So we've got two options with this. We've got our parry and we've got our catch. So the breakdown is very similar to what we've already done. So what's going to happen is when you're feeding your jabs, it is personal preference. Some people are going to feed onto their front pad. Some people are going to feed onto their rear pad. Whichever works for you is fine. The thing that you need to bear in mind is you have the option to use your other hand when you're feeding the jab like this. So when I'm going to move onto my parries and my catches off the jab, I'm going to be feeding, I'm going to be catching with this hand. So what I want to happen is the parry is going to be, Wayne is going to deflect my jab and he's going to throw his own jab straight back. So he's defending with one hand and he's countering with the other one. That is the parry. So when I throw my jab, he counters straight back with his jab. The catch is when I throw my jab, he defends and attacks with the same hand. So off the parry, he defends with one, he counters back with the other. Off the catch, he's defending with one and countering straight back with that very same hand. So in order for this to work, it's a good idea to be catching the pad on that other pad. So another way that we can make the shots completely miss us with some evasive maneuvers is to take ourselves out of the firing line. So we've done the bob and weave. The bob and weave, as we discussed, was a circular movement. We also have the dip available to us. And what that is, that's more of a switch in level. So the bob and weave, it feels very natural to counter back with a hook or counter back with that rotation of our hips. That's where we're going to get our power from. The dip we can also use where we take away that hip rotation. All we do is we switch levels. And the advantage of that is you can counter back with whichever shot you like. So for example, if I tell Wayne to dip off my 3, he's going to just switch level and he might counter back with his 2. Or I might say dip and 6, he's going to dip and he's going to come straight up. Or I might say dip and 4, he's going to switch levels and he's going to come straight back. So the fact that he's just going down and up means that any shot he wants is available to him. If I switch hands, I might say dip and 1. So he's going to switch level and he's just going to come straight back with his jab. Whereas if he was bobbing, it can feel a little bit awkward going into your jab off that. I can say dip and 3. I can say dip and 5. And so then you have all the options available to you. So it is another variation, slight variation, but the fact that you've taken away that hip rotation leaves whichever shot you want to follow up with, you've got a lot more opportunities for that. Another way that we can take ourselves out of the firing line is if we incorporate a little bit of footwork. So we can pull out of the way of the shot. What that means is the person will be aiming for where you are. Anytime you change that, the shot is obviously going to miss. if we're with Wayne here and I throw my jab at him and I want him to do his pull counter, he's going to move his back foot out of range. That front foot has remained in range, so when he comes back in to throw that shot, he gets the force of himself moving in and the benefit of making me completely miss and then timing that counter perfectly. That's the pull counter. So again, what he wants to do is he's going to take his back foot out of the way and he's going to counter straight back. If we do that with a bit more speed on the pull counter, that's what it's going to look like. He pulls, he counters, that's your pull counter. It's a great way to make them miss and make them pay. You get yourself out of range quickly by moving that back foot, you bring it back into range and you throw the shot. Just remember, it's very important that you time the punch with your foot. So you don't want to move out of range back into range and then throw the shot because you're not going to get the full benefit of your body's movement. So what you want to do is take yourself out of range and as you're coming back into range, you throw that punch. Hand and feet move at the same time and you're going to get the maximum benefit from your pull counter. Everything we've done so far has been a single shot counter. What that means is it doesn't matter how many punches Wayne throws beforehand. As soon as I throw a punch, he moves out the way. That becomes his counter punch. So what I'm referring to is how many punches does he throw back after I feed a punch to him. So let's stick with single shot counters and we're going to take each movement on its own and show the variations of it. So for example, we're going to take the slip. We're going to do the basic slip, follow immediately by the slip in, and then we're going to do the interceptive slip where he'll do either his slip jab or his slip cross. I'm going to get Wayne to do a 1-2 as his entry. So he throws his 1 and his 2. Straight away, I'm going to throw that jab that I want him to do the regular slip off. He's going to move out the way and he's going to counter back with that hand. Now I want him to slip straight in. He knows he's then going to be going in the other direction and he's going to counter back with that shot. I want to follow that up with the interceptive shot, so I'm going to throw my punch as he throws the same shot at me, and he's going to finish me off. So you can see there's quite a deal of variation. If we just take the slip and we do the different variations that we have of that, it changes the combination completely. So again, with a little bit more speed, we're going to go 1-2, the normal slip, the slip in, and then the interceptive slip. Sorry. So if we do that with a little bit more speed, you're going to see how much the combination changes. So if we go slip, slip in, and then the interceptive slip, it looks like this. Slip, slip in, interceptive slip, and he finishes with that last counter. Likewise, we can do it off the other hand. So I want him to come into this off his other hand, so I'm going to get him to do a 1-2-3 first. So he's going to throw his 1-2-3, he's going to do his basic slip, he's going to slip in, so imagine he slipped off me or missed, he's going to throw that shot. Now I'm going to throw my left, he's going to throw his left, and he's going to finish me off. So that's how going through each variation of the slip looks on the other hand. So 1-2-3, the basic slip, which he then slips straight off. Remember, that one needs to be quick. You're going to catch and feed with the same hand because what you're trying to simulate is that the shot just missed and they're countering straight back, or you've slid off them and they're coming back quick. The slip in is your option when you need to move quick. You don't have the luxury of getting your hand back to your face. So again, it looks like 1-2-3, the normal slip. The slip in, I throw my left, he throws his left, and he finishes up top. If we do that one with a little bit more speed, it's 1-2-3, slip 3, slip in, straight back down, and he finishes the shot. So just by taking the variations of the slip, we can make all those combinations. And likewise, we can take our bob and weaves and we can do the variations of that and see how that looks. So for example, if I get Wayne doing his 1-2 as his entry, he throws his 1 and 2, he does his normal bob, he's going to go this way, he'll throw that 2. I then say bob back, he's going to go back the other way, and he's going to throw that hook. If I want him to do that interceptive shot, I'm going to throw the hand that's available to me, he's going to throw the same hand, and he's going to finish up top. So that's how our variations look if we're just throwing a single shot counter. Again, that's 1-2, bob, bob back, interceptive bob, and it looks like that. If we go off the other hand, it'd be 1-2-3, he bobs, he counters back with his 3. He bobs back, which he knows means he's going to come back with that other hand. Then he's going to go underneath and he's going to counter straight back. Now, obviously, that does look quite fiddly. And if you're new to this, it's worth going piece by piece. But all I want to show you is how the combinations can vary. All we've done is taken each option and done literally one shot after it, and we can make combinations like that already. But we're going to keep exploring how we can change the combinations with the different amount of punches that we throw back. And as well too, obviously we've got the cover and the catch, which is the variation of that. So if we wanted to drill that, again, if we start with our 1-2 as our entry point, Wayne would throw the 1 and 2. If I told him to cover, he knows he's going to be ripping that hand back. He's going to be defending with one hand and countering back with the other one. If I then said catch, which is a variation, he's going to defend straight away and throw back. Now, just as a teaching point, that catch counter off the 2 is a great way to make sure they're defending themselves after they punch. What I mean by that is he throws this shot. When he covers, he throws this 2. If his hand is slow to get back, I'm going to catch him off guard. So by him practicing that catch counter, it's a good way of him drilling that hand coming back and throwing his offense straight back. So we could go 1, 2, cover. With the catch, he's going to throw that shot straight there. I could continue if I wanted to switch level to say cover the body, in which case he's going to counter back with that hand. I could say catch, in which case he knows he's going to defend and attack with the same hand. Okay, so we could do it off the 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. Wayne is going to cover, defend with one hand, and he's going to counter with the other. Or he's going to catch, where he's going to defend and he's going to throw that same hand back. So one more time with a little bit more speed. That's 1, 2, 3. He's going to cover, then he's going to catch. If we want, we can continue on and switch levels. He's going to cover the body and he's going to counter back with the other hand, or catch, where he's going to counter back with the same hand. So when we put that whole thing together, we've got 1, 2, 3. He's going to cover and then catch. He's going to cover the body and then catch. So literally just by taking, again, that cover as our variation and exploring the different ways we can do it, we can make all those different combinations. So as you've seen, we can take a variation on its own and do the different variants of it. It does get quite fiddly, and so if you are completely new to the pads, you might look at it and go, I'm very confused. However, that's a good thing to bear in mind with the person that you're working with. So if your boxer is relatively new and you're trying to get them to do things that are far out of their comfort zone, you're going to get the same reaction from them. So the reason we do that is to show, for completion's sake, you can take this option and you can do all those variations. A much simpler way, if we want to just imagine single shot counters, is we could take the base version of each of them. So we could do a slip, we could do a bob, and we could do a cover. So if we do that, it'll look like this. We can get them to do our 1, 2 as the entry. We get them to slip, throw a 1-shot counter. We get them to bob, throw a 1-shot counter. We get them to cover, and they're going to throw that 1-shot counter. Okay, so that way we've taken the base level, not taking the slips in or the bob back or the interceptive shots, anything like that. We can start putting together a relatively nice combination. We can go 1, 2, we can get them to slip, we can get them to bob, and we can get them to cover. Now, the reason something like that is great is because we're getting their head off the center line on the slip, we're getting them nice and balanced and able to avoid hook shots on the bob and weave, and we're getting them able to stop shots and counter back with their other hand off the hook. We can also switch sides. We can do it off the 1, 2, 3. He's going to slip, he's going to bob, and straight away he's going to cover back. So that is a lot more plug and play. You can see the variation, take the base entry of it, get them to throw 1 shot each, and you can get your boxer starting to work on really, really important fundamentals. So what we're going to look at now is how throwing a 2-shot counter changes things. Now, we've already discussed the reality of the situation when you're working with your boxer is the important thing is that they're not getting hit. So the defense, whether it be a slip, whether it be a bob, whether it be a cover, that's the important thing. If they can manage to counter punch after that, or while they're doing it with an interceptive shot, that is fantastic. However, obviously, you don't want to just be throwing single shots all the time. You're going to get predictable. They're going to know what's coming and they're going to start setting you up. So we want to start playing with variations. From a pad holding perspective, a good thing to realize is throwing 2 shots if you're alternating from side to side is also a good way to get your partner or fighter or client to work moving from side to side. And what I mean by that is if I get Wayne to start off with his 1, 2, he's going to slip towards his right hand side. If he gives me 2-shot counters, he's then going to be slipping to his left hand side. So I can use that as a way of getting him to drill either side. So if I tell him we're going to be working 2-shot counters now, give me a 1, 2 slip, slip again, it'll look like that. Likewise, if I took the bob, 1, 2 bob, bob, he's moved to his right hand side, he's moved to his left hand side. Again, if I want him to do it off the covers, 1, 2, cover, give me 2 shots, cover, 2 shots. So just by changing the amount of punches that I get Wayne to throw back at me, it's a good way of getting him to drill, moving one side and then moving to the other side. So we've seen how the single shots are a great way to work the fundamentals, getting out of the way, countering straight back. We've seen how we can use 2-shot counters as a good way of drilling, moving from side to side. When we start moving on to the 3-shot counter, this kind of forms the basis of a lot of the reactive mitts that you'll see. Now, reactive mitts are probably the most widely misunderstood, widely criticized way of holding pads. It's often poorly done, to be honest, so a lot of what people see is just, it looks like people playing tippy-tap, not really understanding what they're trying to work. You can't disregard it entirely purely from some bad representations of it. It definitely does have its place. It's just like everything, important to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. With your reactive mitts, often you're going to see that a 3-shot counter is a very common counter from the defenses that you feed, all right? So what I mean by that is, if I want Wayne to give me 3-shot counters, anytime I tell him a defense, if I say slip, I expect 3 shots to come back, okay? So if I say 1, 2, slip, he knows he's going to slip and he's going to give me that 2, 3, 2 as a counter, because we have previously said that's going to be our 3 shots, okay? So if I say 1, 2, slip, bob, cover, 3 shots start coming back at me, okay? So I don't need to tell him slip, 2, 3, 2, bob, 2, 3, 2, cover, 2, 3, 2. He's got in his head a movement sequence, and you can have a completely different one. But what you start to see is the way you get a flow going with your fighter once they know what comes back. So if I switch sides and we work it off the other hand, I get him to do a 1, 2, 3 coming in. He goes 1, 2, 3, slip, bob, cover. So all I've given him is the cues of what defense I want him to use. I've said slip, I've said bob, I've said cover. We've organized previously what shots I want him to come back with. Now, with regards to holding the pads, what you need to realize is, just like we said, the 2 shots are a great way to get them going from one side to the other side. The 3-shot counter, if you're getting them alternating side, for example, right, or left, right, left, they're always going to start and finish with the same hand. So if we use the 1, 2 as our entry, 1, 2, he's going to slip to his right. I know he's going to end up back on that right-hand side, okay? So whatever I'm going to be doing from then on is going to be based off that. So example, if I say 1, 2, slip, and then cover, I don't even need to think about it. I know that right hand is coming back. It's always going to be the right hand as the first and the last punch. We can start taking it even a bit further. So 1, 2, slip, pull, bob, cover, catch. So we can start plugging and playing all the defenses that we've just explored, and we can make a nice little flow because we understand what we're doing. When we wanted to work our singles, we were aiming to get that nice quick reaction counter punch and then maybe keep moving around. When we're working our doubles, we wanted to double up on those shots. We wanted to hit them with one hand, hit them with the other. And from a drilling perspective, we wanted to be drilling going from side to side. When we started on our triples, that's a good way to improve our punch output. It's not to say it's the only thing we need to do. I might get him going 1, 2, slip, 2, 3, 2, that's it, and then keep moving around. However, you can see how it makes a nice base for the start of reactive pad work. The way I want to time my call is when he's throwing the first punch of however many shots that I want him to throw. So for example, if I want him throwing 3 punches, if I, as the counter punch, so if I say 1, 2, slip, when he starts throwing that shot, I'll give the call of whatever I want next. So if I talk now, it'll be 1, 2, slip, bob, cover, and that gives him enough time to know what the next combination that I want him to throw is going to be back. Otherwise, it's not that it can't be done, it's just that it makes it a lot harder for your fighter to get into a flow state because they're literally waiting for what's coming next if you're talking at them rather than just throwing. If I'm just throwing the punch at him, that's another thing entirely. So if we move around and I just go, whoop, he knows he's got to get out of the way. But if I want things coming back, that's how misunderstandings can happen. So just make sure whatever you're working, you're clear with the person you're working with, how many shots you want back and how you want the shots fed. Do you want to just throw it out at them and expect them to get out of the way? Or do you want them reacting to the calls that you give them? If it's reacting to calls, make sure your calls are clear and well-timed. So a little bridge between choreography and reactive work is to have some pre-organized set calls. What you would use this for is a client that you want to work their fitness, they want to have a little bit of fun, or someone who you know has a really nice combination. For example, maybe they switch levels really well. They go from the body to the head, finish it with a straight, nice. You would make that one of your set calls. What I'll do now is give you a couple of set calls. They're longish combinations, but I call them filler calls. And what they're able to do is you can just give one word or a couple of words that mean a lot of punches. And if you're trying to get someone to up their punch output, it can be a great way of doing it. So here's a couple of calls. They're long shots, so this one I call long. I'll start it with a right uppercut and roll over into a right hand. I'll then throw a hook and a cross. I'll get them to double up on the hook and throw a cross, and then switch level, body, hook, cross. So what it is uppercut, cross, hook, and cross. Double up on the hook, throw the cross, and then body, hook, cross. So he's doubling up and throwing the cross to the head first, and then he's switching levels from body to head. Again, so if I say long, it's up, cross, hook, cross, double hook, cross, body, hook, cross. So that is one call, long. So for example, if we were going 1, 2, slip, bob, cover, long, slip, slip, cover. You can see how inserting that in makes the combination a little bit more flowy. Another call would be to say 7. So we know that number 7 is the left to the body. If I'm moving around and I want him just throwing that body shot, I'll usually just say body or throw the pad there. If I say the number 7, and it's someone that we've arranged, this is what it means. It's a 7-shot counter that starts with the number 7. And what it is body, then hook to the head, throw that cross, pull the hand back, body to the other side, cross, hook, and cross. That's what we call the number 7. Again, it's body shot, head shot, straight, body shot, head shot, with that hook and cross. It's 7 shots, and it starts with the number 7. So number 7, long, and you can just using those 2 calls alone, I literally said 2 words to him and all those punches came out. Another filler call would be the number 8. So number 8, or the punch number 8, is the body shot with this hand. Again, as I said previously, I'll usually just give them the call body or something if I want that thrown out. When I say the number 8, that means I want this whole sequence to come out. It's 8 movements. Now, it starts with a slip, and the reason is often if you throw that backhand body shot and you don't move yourself at all, you'll find that you clip their elbow. It's a little bit hard to land the shot. So you generally either want to be stepping out or you want to be slipping out to line up that shot. So when I say the number 8, it starts with a slip. That's movement 1, 2, 3, 4. Then he slips again. 5, 6, 7, 8. That is the number 8. 8 movements. He starts with a slip. He goes to the body, cross and hook, he slips, body, hook, and cross. Now, as I said, these are my filler calls. You'll have your own, or you can make your own, but they're just a good way of inserting a call that represents a lot of punches if what you want to work on is getting your client, fighter, whatever, throwing a lot of punches. Get Wayne to work what we've just been through, we can go 1, 2, slip, bob, cover, long, 7, 8. So with a few little calls, he throws about 1,000,000 punches. So it's a great way of getting them to throw a lot of punches with very few calls. So we've gone over how we want to be holding the pads, some safety tips on what we want to do and what we don't want to do, how we feed the basic punches, how they should be held, the defenses, the variations of them, the single shot counters, 2-shot counters, 3-shot counters, moving into reactive pad work. So with this stuff, it's probably worth touching on how you want to structure your sessions. Now, obviously, that's completely up to you. how I like to do it is start your boxer off with a nice warm-up, because the last thing you want to be doing is going straight into power shots and causing them an injury. Skipping is obviously a great way to do that. They can work their footwork, work their coordination, their agility, get them skipping for a bit. From there, you can move them into some sort of boxing related warm-up, get their hips moving, get their shoulders moving, because as we know, boxing just isn't the hands moving about, it's a full body exercise, so we want to give them exercises that replicate that, whether it be throws or rotations, cable work, things like that. From there, generally onto the shadow boxing, and this is where you start looking for what we were talking about before, any patterns in their movement. For example, are they dropping a hand when they throw their straights? Are they winding up when they're showing their hooks? Are they telegraphing when they're throwing their uppercuts? From there, you can start assessing what you want to be working with them on the pads, because whatever weaknesses you see, that's the first thing you want to try and target with the pads. Your plan should be to take whatever their weaknesses are and make them a strength. That will proportionally make something else a weakness that you then work on. And that's how you make a plan for the person so that you can see continual improvements with them. When it comes to the pads, it's a very good plan to start basic. Even if the person is experienced, they might not be used to your calls. So there's no point going into some super technical thing. They don't know what you're talking about. They may call the punches something completely different. If you're using the number system and they don't, that's when misunderstanding is happening. So start off your pads. First round, even if it's nothing but straights, we might move around if I've got Wayne. And I'll say, okay, give me a jab. Give me the jab. Double it up for me. Good. Give me a 1-2. Give me a 1-2, 1-2. And so on and so forth. So all we're doing is we're taking the straight punches. I get him to throw a single, throw a double, start switching from side to side, throw multiple shots, everything looks good, his hand's coming back. If he's completely new, that might take a round. Otherwise, then maybe I'll say, okay, give me a 3, give me the 4, give me a 3-4, give me 1-2-3, 1-2-3-4. And I can start seeing how the punches go together, him switching from side to side, him start mixing up angles. Then I might say, give me a jab. Give me a jab and an uppercut. Good, 1-6-3. Good, and so we're introducing that number system that we would have had to have explained previously. He starts being able to play with all the different angles. Give me 1-6-3, down to the body, on the other side, body and straight. Good, like that, I've given him a pre-advanced warning of what I want to happen, and as soon as he sees that shot, he fires it. So body, straight, good. Give me 3-2, 3-2-3, good. And now we're starting to throw all those different punches together. From there, I might take a round to go, okay, we're gonna go over slips. It depends on what level they're at, what sort of slips I want them working on, or what we've assessed that we need to be working on. So we might just do the base. So give me a 1-2 slip, single shot counter. Good. 1-2-3 slip. Good. He knows he's just throwing those 1 shots back. Now I want 2 shot counter. Okay, 1-2. 1-2-3. Slip. Beautiful. So off that, then maybe I say, give me a 1-2 and slip in. Good. 1-2, slip in. Whoa! He knocked his head off. So give me a 1-2 slip in. Good. Give me a 1-2-3 slip in. 1-2-3 slip in. 1-2-3 slip in. Beautiful. And we can see there, mistakes are going to happen. The shot might come through. That's exactly what we're trying to work. It's much better for them to encounter that with these on than in the ring with gloves on. So that's entirely what we're doing. So we want them moving one way, moving the other way. What variation, what could possibly come back? The better prepared they are in the training, the far less likely for it to come up in the ring. And that's your job as the trainer. So we warm them up, we see how their technique is going, we take the defenses, we work, maybe one round is on the slips, the next round is on the bobs, the next round is on the cover. It might be a whole session is on a slip. It might be a whole session is on the basic slip. Or it might be a round is slip, the slip in, the interceptive slip. You've got so much leeway. What we've tried to give you is essentially the framework that you can break down as you see fit. It's now yours to do with what you like. It gives quite a comprehensive view on how you want your boxer moving, defending, counter punching, and attacking. So I hope you found it useful, and thanks a lot for watching.